Hello and welcome everybody to the Sunday International Big Book Workshop. Hi, I'm Dan B. I'm a recovered alcoholic. Hello guys. This workshop is facilitated by Kemble H. This study relies on you listening, but please we pray that you have your big book in hand and follow along with a pen, pencil or highlighter and make any notes and pause if you have to. Write down any questions and we'll take them at the end of the meeting. We will keep everybody muted during this workshop except for the facilitators. Any inappropriate behavior will not be tolerated and you will be removed by one of the co-hosts. This meeting is being recorded. The audio portion only is being recorded and only of the facilitators. The recording will be shut down at the end of the workshop before taking any questions in order to preserve your anonymity. So have a really great meeting, everybody. And how we open this is with the step 3 prayer found on page 63. If you care to join me. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Amen. Over to you, brother.
Amen, brother. Happy Sunday, everybody. And welcome to the Sunday International Big Book Meeting, Keystone Edition. My name is Kemble. I'm a recovered alcoholic. Welcome anybody new, anybody come back, anybody struggling, anybody that's been around for a while. It don't matter. This is a program of recovery, and we simply want to carry this message to the alcoholic who still suffers. Great to see everybody today. Today is a great day. Well, every day sober is a great day. No doubt about it. Thanks to God, the power is greater than us. So today I want to touch on a little bit of the history of Alcoholics Anonymous, from its beginnings, and touch on a little bit about what it has done for all of us, people like me and you, the real alcoholic. In Alcoholics Anonymous, there are certain type of drinkers in the world. We got normal drinkers, they can take it or leave it alone. Better known as moderate drinkers. Then we got heavy drinkers. They can drink. Then their life can still be manageable. And they still can get up and go to work. They still can pay their bills and do different things. And then we got people like me, the real alcoholic, who does crazy, absurd, insane things. I couldn't control my darn drinking if you paid me $1 million, because I lost all the power of choice to drink a long time ago. The fact is, I suffer from an allergy of the body, physical allergy. And the drink set out the phenomenon of craving. And I couldn't stop once that phenomenon hit, so that qualified me to be an alcoholic. Also, the problem of the alcoholic centers in the mind rather than in his body. This is known as the malady, and I describe some more of that as we go through the process. So those two symptoms qualified me to be a real alcoholic, as the book describes on page 21. Okay, a little bit. A matter of fact, the reason this subject I prayed to God, as I pray to all the time, I asked him what would be a good subject to talk about today. That's why I come up with the history of Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous just celebrated, I think, birthday number 88 yesterday, June 10, 1935. And yesterday is my daughter's birthday. She turned 43, right? And when I look back on my past, I was an alcoholic when she was born in 1980. So, and I've been sober 3.5 years, right? So I suffered from alcoholism a whole lot of years. But thanks to this program, it's simply taking the steps in this program, it solved my alcohol problem, and life has become quite different today. So, Alcoholics Anonymous, it was founded in 1935, by Bill, our co-founder Bill Wilson. And Dr. Bob, Robert Smith, we call him Bill W., and it has since grown to be worldwide. Well, today, it's back in 1935, but today, there are over 2.1 million Alcoholics Anonymous members. It's over 180 countries, and it's in over 100 different literatures around the world. And today, we not only have the books, we got Zoom formats, we got these electronic devices. We can watch meetings, or we can read the book anywhere we go. on our phone, iPad, iPhone, whatever we may have. Even the computers at home, we got voice. It'll read the big book to you, no matter where you go. So technology has expanded so very much over these 88 years. And you know, Alcoholics Anonymous, the book, it was deemed as one of the most 20 most influential books in the history of mankind. And that's true, because before this book, this idea of one alcoholic helping another in order to recover, this whole idea came about by Bill. And I'll explain a little bit of that too. But you know, just think about at the beginning of mankind, all the people that might have suffered from alcoholism and died because they didn't have a solution. But you know, way before then, this power that's greater than ourselves, I call him God, right? He knew that these drunks are going to need some kind of plan of recovery, or else they're just going to die off the map. So he implanted this in Brother Bill Wilson, and he incorporated this AA thing. So a little bit about alcoholism, like back in the 1700s and the 1800s, right? It was nearly 2 centuries before Alcoholics Anonymous came to life. John Wesley, he was a Methodist preacher, so to say. And he had a teaching period, you know, and he had groups that was similarly compared to Alcoholics Anonymous. But you know, it was like a Christian group, right? But we know from the big book tells us to always make sure to see that religious people are right? But I noticed on some of my Facebook page groups that we have, when you say something about God or say something about Jesus, or you post a Bible scripture, they want to argue against the fact this program there's that religion. Why you want to bash your religion on us? It's not fun about bashing our religion on you. It's about a spiritual way of living. So where do we think spiritual way of living came from? It came from a Christian community, a Christian base. It came from another big book that I studied. Yeah, Alcoholics Anonymous is not religion. Religion is a snare. Religion don't save us. It didn't save me. Organized religion kept me drunk the whole time I was in it. Power that's greater than me saved my darn life. But religion is just a format. It's an organization. Alcoholics Anonymous is an organization to help keep us alcoholics sober. And then it reminds me of the temperance movement. You know, about a little bit about old Bill here in just a minute. Bill refused to sign this temperance movement back in the days of early prohibition. He wouldn't sign it, but they wanted you to sign a pledge talking about you wasn't going to drink no alcoholism. So in the 1930s, it was common to perceive alcoholism as a moral failing, and the medical profession standards of the time treated alcoholism as a condition that is likely incurable and is fatal or lethal. Same word. Yes, so many people die from alcoholism. I was dying of alcoholism in being in the fellowship of these rooms for over 3 decades. So then the people that couldn't afford to go to certain places, you know, financial resources, they had to go to state. When they didn't have the finances to get what they really needed, they found help through state hospitals, places like the Salvation Army as well, and other charitable societies and religious groups. There was this church, I can't remember the name of it, in New York. They was the first church to open their doors to alcoholics to come in there and give them a place of shelter, feed them, and all of this kind of good stuff. So those who could afford psychiatrists at the time, they were subject to treatment, certain type of treatments, such as, you know, the belladonna treatment. You know, Bill experienced the belladonna treatment. Then they treated, you know, with barbiturates. It was in there just as well. There was just some kind of belladonna treatment was basically some kind of a plant that they would transform into something that gave you some kind of an effect, sort of like maybe a drugs would affect you. It gave you a certain type of feeling. And then one time they had the water splashing there. You can't, the water ain't gonna sober up no darn alcoholic. You know, they spray you with a big old hose pipe trying to sober you up. No, you just be a wet drunk. Time is the only thing that'll sober up an alcoholic. So they tried all these methods very early on now. A little bit about this Oxford group. See, now this is where a lot of dispute comes in in some certain areas now. Now the Facebook group we got called Recovered Alcoholics, it is a chat group. And in the directions when you join this group, it's to express your belief. We're not imposing that nobody believe what we believe, but we feel free that we can express our beliefs in the power that solved our problem. Everybody had their own power. So we have the power to express that God that solved our problem. Now, if you don't believe in God, we have atheists in the group, but they don't came to believe in something if to solve the alcohol problem. An example in the book, the man said, "You believe in electricity, don't you?" Well, yeah, I sure do. Well, if electricity keeps you sober, deal with it. I don't have no problem with it. Shoot, as long as you staying sober and you practicing the principles in the all out affairs, you done found a solution for your alcoholic problem. So now the Oxford group, right? It was a Christian fellowship founded by a Christian missionary. His name was Frank Buckman. Buckman was a minister, right? He was originally a Lutheran, and then he was an evangelist who had a conversion experience in 1908 in a chapel in Keswick, England. The Revival Center of a Higher Life movement, right? This is a movement, a higher life movement. Now, the big book talks about we need to gain experience with a power, or we need to gain a connection with a power greater than ourselves. Well, that could be a higher life. So, as a result of his higher life movement, the experience he had, he found a movement named the First Century Christian Fellowship back in 1921. This came to be known as the Oxford Group by 1928. So, the guy Buckman, he summarized the Oxford Group philosophy in a few sentences. Now, this is a Christian movement now. All people are sinners. All sinners can be changed. Confession is a prerequisite to change. The changed person can access God directly. Miracles are again possible. And the changed person must change others. Don't that sound familiar to some of the steps that we take? Certainly does. And these practices, they were utilized by what they called in the 5 C's, right? We got confidence, we got conviction, we got conversion, and we also have continuance. And I'm missing one somewhere. I had it jotted down. But anyway, in the standard of morality from this Oxford group, it was built on the 4 absolutes, a summary of the teachings on the Sermon on the Mount found in the Holy Bible. So we have absolute honesty. There's 1. We got absolute purity. There's 2. 3, we got absolute unselfishness. 4, we got absolute love. Love is the greatest of all of these things. The big book tells us, we need to, if we exercise love and tolerance, that is our code. Love our neighbor as ourselves. These biblical writings are in our big book, right? But this is not religion. People cannot understand that what we talk about in meetings, we're not pushing religion. We do, it's a spiritual program. The spiritual program of life would solve our problem. But we need to keep an open mind to all spiritual concepts. No doubt about it. So, in Bill's search for relief from his alcoholism, right? He joined the Oxford group and learned the teachings from the Oxford group. But later on, Bill did lead the Oxford group. So he based the structure of Alcoholics Anonymous and many of the ideas that form the foundation of AA's 12-step program on the teachings from the Oxford group. Later in life, Bill Wilson gave credit to the Oxford group for saving his life. They taught Bill Wilson a set of spiritual principles, right? Bill seen this, and Bill seen he need to carry this message and teach other people to practice these spiritual principles. Bill incorporated the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, a spiritual way of living. Now, anybody still think this is religion? I ain't preaching Jesus Christ crucified, not on this format. This is Alcoholics Anonymous me. A lot of people fail to realize that, though. I can talk about God freely, because on page 68 of the big book, let me share what it tells you. And I live by this principle. It's down in the big book. page 68. Then I'll move on. Brother Dan, I want you to read this part though. On page 68, where it says we never apologize. It'll be the third paragraph. Yep.
Yeah. Of course, I've got this highlighted. Page 68. We never apologize to anyone for depending upon our Creator. We can laugh at those who think spirituality the way of weakness. Paradoxically, it is the way of strength. The verdict of the ages is that faith means courage. All men have faith, have courage. They trust their God. We never apologize for God. Instead, we let him demonstrate through us what he can do. We ask him to remove our fear and direct our attention to what he would have us be. At once we commence to outgrow fear.
Thank you, Brother Dan. Step 3, step 7, step 11. Step 11 is conscious contact with God as we understood him. Praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. So, back to Bill Wilson. An Oxford Group understanding of the human condition. The human condition now is evident in Bill's formulation of the dilemma of the alcoholic. Oxford Program, Group of Recovery, and influences of Oxford Group evangelism can still be detected in key practices of Alcoholics Anonymous. The Oxford Group writers sometimes treated sin as a disease. Now, in Alcoholics Anonymous, we relate this to an illness of this sort, as it talks about in our big book. But the Medical Society deemed alcoholism as a disease, I think in 1953, 51 or 53, it's one of those two, I can't remember right off the top of my head. So they saw sin was anything that stood between the individual and God. Well, we was blocked off from our relationship with God due to our alcoholism. We couldn't gain access to God because we were never conscious long enough and could never stay sober long enough to gain a relationship with God. So we drank over and over again, trying to get a relationship with God. When the alcohol was removed, though, by practicing the steps, then we can gain a relationship with God. So that's what's blocked us off. Now, the big book talks about we need to get rid of what's blocking us, right? So we got to look at ourselves. Ourself was what blocked us from a relationship with God. The big book tells us that, it explains it to us over and over again. So, and sin, talking about sin is a defect of all human beings. That's when it means when Bill was talking about the human condition. We are all, everyone in the world is infected with it. The big book describes this as a spiritual malady, right? And when the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out physically and mentally. The spiritual malady don't make us alcoholic. It's the allergy and the malady. The spiritual malady is simply was something that's within us. And without a relationship with God, we'll be afflicted with this spiritual malady. You know, it's a problem anyway. We ain't gonna never work the spiritual program perfectly, but we claim progress rather than perfection. So, and it's rooted in selfishness and self-centeredness. That's another thing that was blocking us. So then it goes on to talk a little bit about if one could surrender one's ego to God, sin would go with it. So, you know, and the book talks about surrender, but well, not the book, but people in a lot of meets talk about the surrender, right? You got to surrender to your drinking and this and that. But I like the word fully concede. We must fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholic or we are alcoholic. That's the first step in recovery. See, rooted in selfishness and self-centeredness, we can distinguish the true from the false. It was alcohol. That was the solution to every problem we ever had, every terrible thought I ever had. Well, I take a drink so I can change my thinking. And then when I changed my thinking, another drink came and we got one there. And it simply changed the way that I behave. So my behavior didn't make me alcoholic either, you know. And I had to reemphasize that over and over. I thought, well, getting in trouble, am I alcoholic? Yeah, I must be. No, fool, the reason you're alcoholic, you can't control and enjoy your drink. You can't take one and leave it alone. I'm talking to myself now. I can't take a drink and leave it alone. And you know, it took over 40 years for that stuff to beat me down until I realized finally, well, Kim, you can't take a drink, fool. You're a darn alcoholic. I didn't find that out till somebody 12-stepped me through this program. I always thought I had control. One more drink, one more debacle with the bottle. Well, next time I'm gonna do better, right? Shoot, next time worse than this first time. Boom. And this was repeated over and over again. And like the good doctor said, unless one can experience an entire psychic change, there's very little hope for his recovery, no doubt. So then, in 1955, Bill Wilson wrote, the early AA got its ideas of self-examination, acknowledgement of character defects, restitution for harm done, and working with others straight from the Oxford group and directly from Sam Shoemaker, their former leader in America. I know y'all done heard of the name Sam Shoemaker. He was very important in the early beginning of AA. No doubt about it. So the AA concept of powerlessness departs significantly from the Oxford belief. In AA, the bondage of our illness cannot be cured. There's no cure for alcoholism. So, but the Oxford group, they stress the possibility of complete victory over sin. What other big book that I read? Drunkenness is one of them sins, and it'll block you off from ever having a relationship with God, and it will. When I used to preach, I used to go door to door preaching. I used to preach up in the pulpit, and every time I left that pulpit, I'm somewhere drunk a few hours afterwards. As soon as I get enough whiskey in me, that was when I was in religion, all right? I didn't have a relationship. I leave out the pulpit. As soon as I get in my door, I'm reaching for my whiskey bottle, and then when I take that one drink, boom, 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 it kept on and on and on. Now, you may wonder, well, Alcoholics Anonymous connection to the Oxford group, right? Roland Hazard, that's the name that pops up very much. So in 1931, Roland Hazard, he was an American business executive. He went to Zurich, Switzerland to seek treatment for alcoholism with psychiatrist Carl Jung. And it's rooted in the book here. Let me see what page I'm going to. 1 minute. And Brother Dan, you know where Roland's story is going to be. Hold on. Things more about alcoholism. Okay, but anyway, I'll find it in just a minute because I'm trying to concentrate. And we'll get to that before I get through. So he went over there to see Dr. Carl Jung. So when Roland entered treatment with Jung after about a year, right, he came back to the U.S. You know, he soon resumed drinking. So he went back to the doctor for another treatment. So the doctor told Roland Hazard that his case was hopeless, as with other alcoholics, and that his only hope might be a spiritual conversion with a religious group. That's what Dr. Carl Jung told Roland Hazard. And it talks about it here on page, I think Leon lost today. But anyway, Dr. Jung told him he was hopeless, and without that spiritual experience, he doomed. So, you know, to be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live on a spiritual basis, these are the only two alternatives that we have, no doubt. And I'm grateful for the spiritual basis of life because that simply solved our alcohol problem. Okay, so Roland, he came back to the States and he went to the Oxford group. And the teachers from the Oxford group, they were eventually the source of such AA concepts, such as meetings or shares, right? No doubt about it.
I saw that, page 26.
Yeah. That's what I was looking for. Yeah. Here it is, page 26. Thank you, Gary. I usually remember all this stuff off the top of my head, but sometimes I have to write stuff down, even though it's highlighted in my book right here. So, so I share this with people on page 26. Top of the page, pretty much, it says, the doctor says you have the mind of a chronic alcoholic. I have never seen one single case recover where that state of mind existed to the extent that it does in you. Our friend felt as though the gates of hell had closed on him with a clang. Boom, no doubt about it. Sound like being locked up in the jail cell, right? When we get locked up, we hear that clang and we stuck. This is how we should feel after we done did step one. Well, shoot, I'm hopeless. Boom, I can't get out. This the clang. Boom, boom, boom. I know that's the way I felt. I was in a hopeless condition of mind and body. How was I going to get out of this condition? Well, I finally realized I need to take the 12 steps to get out of this darn condition. So I couldn't do this alone. I tried so darn long. There is no way I could do this crap by myself. So then, another thing, Roland, he went through a spiritual conversion, with the help of the Oxford group. So he began to experience relief from his drink condition. So he became converted to a lifetime of sobriety while on a train ride from New York to Akron, I think it was. Yeah. So the members of the group, when he got there, they introduced Ebby Thatcher to Roland Hazard. So Roland Hazard, he brought Thatcher to the Cavalry Rescue Mission led by the Oxford group leader, Sam Shoemaker. Over the years, the mission helped over 200,000 needy people. And Ebby Thatcher also attained periodic sobriety in later years, but he did die sober. He was the man that came to bring this message from the Oxford group to our co-founder, Bill Wilson. So then, of course, we know Bill carried the message to Bob, and Bob carried the message to Alcoholics Anonymous number 3, Bill Dawson, and it spread from there on. It spread worldwide today. So a little bit about Bill Wilson. In 1934, Bill got sober, I think it was. He was an alcoholic. Yeah. Bill was an alcoholic. He had married, he had ruined his career. That's what I'm going to. On Wall Street by his drinking. He loved Wall Street. We all familiar with Bill's story, how Wall Street took him, he was just in love with Wall Street. And what I could identify with him very closely. When the stock market crashed, people were jumping out the window. Bill said, I ain't finna jump. I'm going back to the bar. That was Bill's solution. So that would have been my solution too. I'm going to kill myself because I done lost all these millions. I'm going to drink again and sit there and think of a plan. I'm going to get this money back. See, Bill was determined. He was determined. That fierce determination came back. So, but anyway, Bill, he didn't really graduate from the law school because he was too drunk to pick up his darn diploma, right? So his drinking damaged his marriage, and he was hospitalized at Towns Hospital. The book's got 3 incidences, but I know that was at least 4, and there could be maybe more. We don't know if Dr. Silkworth recorded all the times that Bill was there, but we do got 3 here in the book, no doubt about it. And history research gives me 4 times at Towns Hospital between 1933 and 1934 under Dr. Silkworth's care. So on Bill's first day at Towns Hospital, Dr. Silkworth explained to him the theory that alcoholism is an illness rather than a moral failure or willpower. See, people thought we alcoholics drank because our willpower was weak, but it's just the opposite. We alcoholics drank. Our willpower was strong because we were going to be strong and motivated to go get our drunk going. So that's strong willpower because we were going to accomplish our mission. When we set out to go get some more alcohol, we going to beg, borrow, steal, kill, or whatever, right? That's strong willpower because we ain't going to stop till we get what we want. So alcoholics' will can't be weak. We know that willpower is never enough anyway to solve our problem. So Here's what Dr. Silkworth believed. You know, it's rooted in the book too. He believed that alcoholics were suffering from a mental obsession. Look at this in here, Dan, over here, KG. You see? Thank
Done.
you. So Silkworth believed that alcoholics were suffering from a mental obsession combined with an allergy that made compulsive drinking inevitable, and to break the cycle, one had to completely abstain from alcohol use. So true. The doctor's opinions tells us the only relief that we have is entire abstinence, and that's found on page XXX in the doctor's opinion at the last, next to the last paragraph. And it reads about the alcoholic that all these and many others have one symptom in common. They cannot start drinking without developing the phenomenon of craving. This phenomenon, as we have suggested, may be the manifestation of an allergy, which differentiates these people and sets them apart as a distinct entity. It sets us apart, right? So it has never been by any treatment with which we are familiar permanently eradicated. The only relief we have to suggest is entire abstinence. Yes. So, but you know, that helped Bill out because he was elated to find that he suffered from an illness. He suffered from an illness, right? And he managed to stay off alcohol for a month, but then he started back drinking again. When Everett Thatcher, which they call that Bill sponsor, there wasn't no sponsorship going on back in the beginnings of AA. So Everett came to see Bill in New York at his apartment, and Everett's explanation to Bill was that he had got religion, right? And it's rooted right here in our big book. And it's on page 11.
9.
No, back up. Here it is, page 9. Then he says, hey, Brother Dan, where it says, come, what's this about? All this is about.
Yeah. This is after coming through the door.
Yeah.
Well, what's all this about? I queried. He looked straight at me simply but smilingly. He said, I've got religion. I was aghast.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So that was it. Last summer, an alcohol crackpot. Now I suspected a little cracked about religion. He had the starry-eyed look. Yes, the old boy was on fire, all right, but bless his heart, let him rant. Besides, my gin would last longer than his preaching.
Okay, go ahead.
But he did not know ranting. In a matter-of-fact way, he told how 2 men had appeared in court persuading the judge to suspend his commitment. They had told of a simple religious idea and practical program of action. That was 2 months ago, and the result was self-evident. It worked.
Okay, you say it worked, right?
Yep.
You notice what they said, right? They had told of a simple religious idea and a practical program of action. It says religious idea, right? That's a spiritual idea, a spiritual concept. Not religion like these people be trying to bash me on my page, right? I just have to respond back to them. I said, fool, this is not church. This is a chat group. This is not an inside me. I can use these words if I want to. It's in the big book. Anything in the big book I can use, right? So, now, and then Bill said he had come to pass his experience along to me. And if I cared to have it, right? So this is what alcoholics do. When we get a solution, we pass it on to another alcoholic. It works when all other activities fail. This is very in the beginning. So then, until Everett came to see Bill that day, Bill had struggled with the existence of God. And he talks about it in his story as well. But of his meeting that he had with Everett Thatcher, right in his apartment, Bill said, my friend suggested what then seemed a novel idea. So Everett told him, why don't you choose your own conception of God? Bill said that statement hit me hard. It melted the intellectual mountain in whose shadow I had lived and shivered many years. I stood in the sunlight at last. When Everett left, That day, Bill continued to drink. So Evie returned a few days later, bringing with him another guy, Shep Cornell, who was another Oxford Group member, who was aggressive in his tactics of promoting the Oxford Group program. But despite their efforts, Bill still continued to drink. That's what we alcoholics do, right? People bring us these different ideas, right? But we still continue to drink because an idea is not going to do nothing for us unless it's followed up by action. Bottom line, I can have this idea in my brain all I want to. Well, shoot, I ain't gonna drink, but then that idea gonna tell me to drink without a solution, right? So that's what we do. We keep on drinking. We drink during our drinking career. We drink in all circumstances, all matters. We simply drink, no matter how good or how bad our lives were at the time. If life was good, we drank. If life was screwed up, we drank. If life was in between, we drank. That's what we real alcoholics do, man. So the next morning, Bill arrived at the Cavalry Rescue Mission, right? And I think you see this in that movie. I think it was in the movie. But anyway, he arrived at the Cavalry Rescue Mission in a drunken state, looking for Evie. Once there, he did attend his first Oxford Group meeting, where he answered the call to come to the altar, and along with other people, he gave his life to Christ. And he talks about Christ in his big book too. Wilson excitedly told his wife Lois about his spiritual progress. Progress, right? But yet, the next day he drank again. And a few days later, he put himself back in the Towns Hospital for the fourth and the last time. So at Towns Hospital, under Silk Works care, Wilson was administered a drug cure, as they called it back then, concocted by Charles B. Towns Hospital, known as the belladonna cure. It contained belladonna, atropa belladonna, and henbane. These plants could contain deliriants, such as atropine and scopolamine, and they cause hallucinations, similar to the effect the drug acid will cause on people today. It causes hallucination. And as we learn more about Bill, 20 years after he got sober, he used the same kind of treatment. And he thought this treatment would help other alcoholics to get a spiritual experience. And so, but it was while undergoing this treatment this last time at the hospital, that's when Bill had his hot flash, what we call a spiritual conversion. It's better known as a white light experience, right? That's what they describe Bill as having, a white light experience. So while Bill was laying in bed and he was depressed and he was despairing, so Bill called out, "I'll do anything, anything at all. If there be a God, let him show himself." But Bill crying out to God. I didn't have to cry out to God too. But when I was beat down to a state of mind that was just crazy. The body broke down. I couldn't stop myself from drinking. So then Bill had the sensation of a bright light. He said a feeling of ecstasy and a new serenity. And Bill described this experience to Dr. Silkworth, who told him not to discount it. So I remember Silkworth telling him in the book, "I don't know what you done found, Bill, but you might ought to better hang on to it." No doubt. So then, like I said, once again, Evie introduced him to the basics of the tenets of the Oxford Group and also to the book Varieties of Religious Experience by American psychologist and philosopher William James, which that is a pretty good book. We got stories in our big book showing how people gain their spiritual experience and in their relationship with God, right? So upon Bill reading the book, Bill was later to state that the phrase deflation at depth leapt out at him from the page of William James's book. However, this phrase does not appear in the book. It was William James' story. It was his theory that spiritual transformations come from calamities and their source lies in pain and hopelessness and surrender. James's belief concerning alcoholism was that the cure for dipsomania was religiomania. That's what he thought the cure was, but we know it wasn't. So then, upon Bill's release from the hospital in December 1934, he moved from the Cavalry Rescue Mission to the Oxford group meeting at Cavalry House. There, Bill socialized after the meetings with other ex-drinking Oxford group members and became interested in learning how to help other alcoholics achieve sobriety. It was during this time that Bill went on a crusade to save alcoholics. Sources of his prospects were the Cavalry Rescue Mission and Towns Hospital, though not a single one of the alcoholics Wilson tried to help stayed sober, but Bill himself stayed sober. That brings me to the first person Bill was able to succeed with getting sober, and that'd be old Dr. Bob, 1935. But Dr. Sitworth believed that Bill was making a mistake by telling new people that his hot flash about his white light experience conversion he was trying to apply the Oxford group principles. So Sitworth advised Bill of the need to deflate the alcoholic. He told Bill to give him his medical understanding and to give it to them hard. Tell them of the obsession that condemns them to drink and the physical sensitivity that condemns them to go mad, and of the compulsion to drink that might kill them. See, like when that phenomenon of craving kicks in, once we activate that allergy, right? That can kill us alone, because when we get crazy and we run out of liquor, and that phenomenon craving is still on us, we're gonna do anything to get us another drink. I mean, from personal experience, I've done dangerous things. I've hurt people because to take what they had to get me something else to drink. That's how serious this stuff is. It is very serious. Then you can easily kill yourself. When your brain is fogged up, you may go on a blackout. Man, you could die from anything. You could step in front of a car, you run your car off the road into a tree, or somebody can kill you for you disrespecting them or trying to rob them or anything else, and you don't even know it. This stuff is serious. He believed that if this message were told to them by another alcoholic, it would break down their ego, right? So only then could the alcoholic use the other medicine Wilson had to give, right? The principles he had picked up from the Oxford group. And these principles that he picked up from the Oxford group, they later became 6 steps, and then Bill later, it became the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, which has been changing people's lives for a whole lot of years. So here's 6 of the original steps, I do believe, yes. And like I said, this is some of the Oxford group steps. This is where Bill got these ideas from. So step 1, it says we admitted that we were lit, that we were powerless over alcohol. Step 2, we made a moral inventory of our defects or sins. 3, we confessed or shared our shortcomings with another person in confidence. 4, we made restitution to all those we had harmed. 5, we tried to help other alcoholics with no thought of reward in money or prestige. 6, we prayed to God. We prayed to whatever God we thought there was power to practice these precepts. It says we pray to whatever God. So we should not bash another person for expressing the God that they believe in, right? We pray to whatever God that we had our conception of. My conception happened to be the God of the universe. Jesus Christ, that's my God. That's the power that saved me. But I get a lot of flack from using that word, right? They said, you need to quit your preaching. This ain't your religion. I said, no, it's not religion, man. This is Alcoholics Anonymous. So today I'm sharing what went on in the beginning. I just hope everybody get a clear understanding how Alcoholics Anonymous and this Oxford group, which is the religious group, how they connected in the beginning. Without it, Bill might not have had enough galls either. Ebby Thatcher probably wouldn't have found what he found in the Oxford group to bring this message to Bill. AA when it never got started, you know? If everybody hadn't came to see Bill would have never thought about stopping drinking, right? So the practical program of action from the Oxford group, what Ebby presented to Bill, you know, even though Bill drank that day when Ebby left, but he still drank about a month later, but that's what alcoholics do. We relapse. We're going to relapse until we get a solution to actually do the program of action. But the seed had been planted. That's the important thing. And then Bill, he took the necessary course of action and it solved his alcohol problem. And he stayed sober. So then Dr. Bob, a little bit about Dr. Bob. It's the idea that one alcoholic helping another still in effect. So during a business trip to Akron, Ohio, Bill was tempted to drink, right? So he knew he must talk to another alcoholic to stay sober. So he got on the phone. He was at the Mayflower Hotel that night. He phoned local ministers to ask if they knew any alcoholics. So there's one person named Norman Shepherd directed him to the Oxford group member, Henrietta Sieberling, whose group had been trying to help a desperate alcoholic named Dr. Bob Smith. See, Henrietta was responsible for Bill meeting Dr. Bob, our other co-founder of AA. So while Dr. Bob was in college, right, he started drinking heavy and he almost failed to graduate from medical school. Dr. Bob was, you know, he was a physician. So he opened his medical practice, then he got married. But his drinking put his business and his family in jeopardy. Well, that's what drinking do to all of us, right? No matter, I mean, here you is a big time physician, and you can't put the bottle down. You got to take a drink before you work on somebody. Just like me, when I was doing mechanic work and cook work in the military, right? I had to take a drink before I go work on your vehicle. That's some insane stuff, right? So it's just that's the way we alcoholics live. So we put everything in jeopardy due to our alcoholism. So then for 17 years, Dr. Bob's daily routine was to stay sober until the afternoon, get drunk, go to sleep, then take sedative to calm his morning jitters. That sounds like Bill Wilson too, right? When he turned to gin and sedative to keep him from having the morning jitters. Bathtub gin to start your morning off. Boom, sedative, mixing sedatives with all this. Oh my goodness. Well, I done did all that too, so I know how they feel. But he did this for 17 years. So then Henrietta Sieberling, right? She convinced Dr. Bob to talk with Bill. But Smith limited the meeting, so I talked to him for 15 minutes. But then when Bill got there, right, they got introduced to each other. But then Bill, he was so impressed. No, Dr. Bob, he was so impressed by what Bill was telling him about his knowledge of alcoholism and his ability to share his own experience that the discussion lasted 6 hours. Now, that's pretty amazing. You give a man, say, ain't gonna talk to him for 15 minutes about the condition that you're in, and you still have 6 hours, you must be pretty darn interested. No doubt about it. Man, similar experience here. I had to listen to somebody. When they explained things to me, I could connect. Well, that's me. And how did you get sober? Well, I took the 12 steps. So they took me through it. Boom, that's when I found a relationship with God and it commenced to solve my alcohol problem. So then shortly, Bill, he moved in with Dr. Bob and Annie. So they both had made plans to take their message of recovery on the road. So during this period, however, Dr. Bob returned to drinking, but he was at a medical convention. Now here this big time doctor at a medical convention, by George, he done went back to drinking. But during his stay at Dr. Bob's home, Bill joined Dr. Bob and his wife in the Oxford group practice of morning guidance, sessions with meditations and Bible readings, right? This is what Dr. Bob did and Bill in the beginning, Bible readings, right? Now they co-founders of AA. So, I mean, I can't see what the problem is with people in the meetings today. I guess lack of knowledge of how AA started. That's the only thing I can figure out. They want to rap and rave and fuss and cuss and all this good stuff. Well, it came from These ideas and principles had to come from somewhere. So then that book, Varieties of Religious Experience, it is a good book. I got it here on PDF. It's a great book. And it became an important inspiration for Dr. Bob and other alcoholics. That was at the Akron group. The Akron group, the AA group. They was inspired by these very same things. So Bill spent a month working with Dr. Bob, and Dr. Bob was the first person that Bill had brought to sobriety. Smith's last drink was on June 10, 1935. Yesterday, formulating the anniversary of the founding of AA. God, thank God for that right there. And see, his last drink, he had to have a darn beer, right, for his hand, to keep his hand steady, because he had one more surgery to perform. He had a surgery to perform that morning. So, he got that drink, and that was his last drink. He needed that drink to finish his job, and he moved on along. So this brought along the founding of Alcoholics Anonymous. So thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous today, man. These men, this had to be divine guided, right? The way this thing was put together. I believe that with all my heart. So I thank you, Brother Dan, and I thank everybody for being here. That would be Brother Rob and Pete and Gary, my buddy, Bryson and Pam. God bless. Thanks for being here for me and all of us. Hope somebody got something out of a little bit of touch on the history.